Imagine standing in a ballroom, surrounded by people who think you nothing, until the moment you reveal you could buy the very ground they standing on. This is the story of how I turned humiliation into the ultimate power move, and made sure everyone who ever doubted me would never forget my name. If you've ever been underestimated, insulted, or dismissed by people who thought they were better than you, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready for a story where karma comes dressed in navy blue and revenge is served with a single signature. A sharp, dry slap cracked through the ballroom like a gunshot. The sting on my cheek burned, hot and humiliating, as the shattered remains of my champagne glass glittered at my feet. The golden liquid pooled on the marble, catching the chandelier's light in jagged, mocking reflections. The air was thick with the sour bite of alcohol and the sharper bite of 100 whispers. All eyes were on me. My old navy blue dress clung to my skin, now speckled with champagne, the fabric suddenly too tight, too revealing. Brenda stood in front of me, her breath coming fast, cheeks flushed with fury, her eyes narrow and venomous. "Pathetic," she hissed, low enough for only me to hear, sharp enough to draw blood. For a moment, the world stopped, the clink of glasses, the soft piano, the hum of conversation all swallowed by a silence that pressed against my ribs. They didn't know. Not one of them. Not the women in their glittering gowns, nor the men with their polished cufflinks. They had no idea that the woman Brenda just slapped, the one she called pathetic, could buy this entire hotel, the chandeliers, the marble, the very air they breathed, with a single signature. My name is Kaye Monroe. If they typed the right words into a search bar, they'd find out I'm one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in America, CEO of Monroe Holdings, an investment group juggling billions in assets. But that's not the Kaye they saw tonight. They saw the girl in the faded dress, the one who didn't belong, the one who'd always been easy to dismiss. And I liked it that way. I'd built my life on being underestimated, on letting their pity and contempt fuel something they'd never understand. My life wasn't always velvet drapes and private jets. Once, it was a dorm room with peeling paint, a mattress so thin I could feel the springs digging into my back. I remember those winter nights, curled under a blanket too flimsy to keep out the cold, my stomach twisting with hunger after I'd run out of instant noodles. But the hunger wasn't the worst part. It was the looks. The way people's eyes slid over me, a girl in threadbare clothes, shoes scuffed to the sole, with pity or, worse, disgust. I overheard it once outside a lecture hall. "She'll never be anything. Look at her." I didn't flinch. I just memorized their words, tucking them away like kindling for a fire I was building inside. Back then, I juggled 3 jobs, waitressing, tutoring, cleaning offices after hours while scribbling business plans in notebooks so worn the pages curled. Every night, I'd collapse onto that thin mattress, my hands stained with ink, my eyes burning from exhaustion. But I kept going, because every sneer, every pitying glance, every door slammed in my face was just another reason to prove them wrong. Then, one spring morning, a cream-colored envelope arrived in my mailbox. Its gold edges caught the sunlight like a promise I wasn't sure I wanted to keep. The sender, Luca, my college roommate, the girl who'd split instant noodles with me on nights when the world felt too big, too cold. We hadn't spoken in 3 years. Inside was a wedding invitation. I stared at the elegant script, my heart thudding. Luca was getting married. Who am I going as? Kaye Monroe, CEO of Monroe Holdings. Or just Kaye, the girl who once shared a bowl of noodles under a flickering dorm light. That morning, I stood before my closet, fingers brushing over fabrics most people waited years to own. Valentino, Chanel, Louboutin, none of it felt right. Not today. Instead, I reached for the old navy blue dress. My lucky dress, the one I'd worn to my first investor pitch. Back when my dreams were scribbled in notebooks, and my bank account held less than $100. I tied my hair back, slipped on low-heeled shoes, and drove my faded silver Honda Civic among the Maseratis and Bentleys parked outside the hotel. The valet's eyes flickered over my car, then the ticket in my hand. "Have a wonderful evening, ma'am," he said, polite but uncertain. Inside, the world shifted. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, a symphony drifting through the air. Women glided past in sequined gowns, men in tailored suits. I stood still, the navy dress hanging loose on my frame, my hands empty of champagne or pretense. I wanted to find Luca, to see the girl who'd known me before the money, before the empire. My eyes scanned the room, searching for her familiar face. A voice cut through the hum. "Kaye, is that really you?" Luca, radiant in her wedding dress, rushed toward me, her eyes sparkling just as they had in college. She hugged me tight. "Still the same old Kaye. That's what I love about you. You never change." But a small ache bloomed in my chest. The same old Kaye. If only she knew. Then a shadow moved closer. Andrew, her husband, tall and commanding, extended a hand. "Kaye, right. Luca's told me so much about you. Finally, I get to meet the legend from her college stories." His politeness was smooth, but his eyes flicked over my dress, lingering on the scuffed edges of my shoes. Before I could respond, Brenda, Andrew's sister, glided in. "Kaye and Luca were roommates back in the day," she said, her voice too sweet to be kind. "I heard Kaye lives quite simply." Andrew raised an eyebrow. "Simply," he repeated, the word hanging like a challenge. "So, what do you do these days, Kaye?" "A few personal projects," I said, keeping my voice even. Brenda giggled, high and sharp. "Personal projects? What? Like freelance work or something?" Andrew's smile widened. "Luca and I are working on a potential contract with Monroe Holdings. Ever heard of them? Massive investment group. We're talking a deal worth what, $500 million. Kind of a big deal." I held his gaze, lips curving into a small, unreadable smile. "Sounds impressive," I said. Brenda sighed, her pity so rehearsed it was almost art. "Kaye probably hasn't even stepped foot in $1 million boardroom. Right, Luca?" The air grew heavy, their words coiling around me like smoke. Eric, a college classmate, appeared, his grin wide, his handshake too tight. "So, what are you up to now? Still freelancing, or whatever?" Brenda leaned in, voice dropping. "Yeah, that's the vibe I'm getting. You look out of place here, like you're crashing a party that isn't yours." A few heads turned. A young woman stifled a giggle. An older couple looked away fast, like I was something messy. The room felt smaller, tighter, but I stayed exactly where I was, because I knew something none of them did. Brenda leaned forward, her voice dropping just enough to carry to the tables around us. "I heard from Luca that your parents are gone, aren't they, Kaye?" The words cut deep. She sighed, her face twisting into a mask of false pity. "So sad. No parents, no family to lean on. Everyone here knows without family money, you're nothing." The table beside us went quiet. Forks hovered over plates. My hands clenched under the table, nails digging into my palms. I lifted my chin. "My parents weren't rich," I said, my voice steady. "But they taught me a person's worth isn't measured by money." Brenda's laugh rang out, sharp and brittle. "That's the funniest thing I've ever heard. In this world, Kaye, money is everything. Stop fooling yourself." Brenda's hand shot out, snagging the strap of my dress. Before I could react, she yanked hard. The seam split with a sickening rip. the fabric tearing open along my side, exposing the pale skin at my waist. The ballroom froze. I stood there, one hand clutching the torn fabric, my face burning, my vision blurring. The weight of their stares pressed against me, some curious, some pitying, others gleaming with cruel delight. Eric folded his arms, his gaze cold. "You're truly pathetic, Kaye. Do you really think you belong here? You're nothing but a shadow, always looking up at people who've actually made something of themselves." Brenda mirrored him, her arms crossed, her laugh dripping with contempt. "Exactly, pathetic. Can't even afford a decent dress." Then, without warning, her hand came flying across my face. A sharp crack split the air, pain exploded across my cheek. The entire ballroom gasped. When I straightened up, my skin burned where she'd hit me. I tasted blood at the corner of my mouth. Brenda stood there, chest heaving, her eyes wild. "Pathetic," she hissed again. "You don't belong here." Then a voice cut through the noise, trembling but sharp as glass. "Eric, Brenda, shut up right now." Luca, back in her wedding dress, her eyes burning. "The only people who should be ashamed here are you." Andrew strode over, his face darkening. "Luca, why are you defending her? She doesn't belong here." Luca's fists clenched. "Andrew, stop. Right now." Andrew leaned closer, his stare sharp as a blade. "I'm just stating the truth. Someone like you, Kaye, you wouldn't even qualify to be a receptionist at my company." Luca stepped forward, her voice ringing off the crystal walls. "If you don't apologize to Kaye right now, this wedding ends tonight." For the first time, I saw fear flicker across Andrew's face. My phone buzzed in my purse. My assistant's voice came through, smooth and crisp. "Ms. Monroe, the limousine and security team are here, waiting for your word." I closed my eyes, letting the words settle. Then I opened them, releasing the torn fabric, letting it fall loose. I straightened, my spine a steel rod, my gaze steady. "You want to know who I am?" I said, my voice low, each word falling like a stone. "I'm Kaye Monroe, CEO of Monroe Holdings." A sharp clatter broke the silence. Brenda's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. Eric's jaw tightened, his eyes wide. The grand doors of the ballroom swung open. A line of sleek black limousines gleamed outside. The hotel manager hurried toward me, his face pale. "Ms. Monroe, it's an honor to have you here. Would you like us to prepare a private suite?" Andrew stood rooted, his face drained of color. You're Kaye Monroe." His voice was barely a whisper. I held his gaze, surprise. "I was actually considering that $500 million deal your company's been pitching. But I daren't do business with people who judge others for the car they drive or the dress they wear." Andrew swallowed hard, beads of sweat glistening at his temples. Brenda stood frozen, her hands trembling. Andrew stammered, "Kaye, I'm sorry. I didn't know." I let the silence stretch. "I forgive you," I said, my voice low but clear. "But the deal, it's off." A gasp rippled through the crowd. Whispers swelled like waves. Luca surged forward, her wedding dress flowing, wrapping her arms around me. "Rich or poor," she whispered, "you're my friend. Always." Andrew took a shaky step closer, desperation in his voice. "Kaye, please. You can't cancel this. That deal keeps my company alive." I'm sorry. But my employees." I cut him off, my tone soft but final. "I'm sure your employees deserve better than a boss who judges people by the price tag on their dress. We're done here." Brenda stumbled forward, tears streaking her cheeks. "Kaye, I'm sorry. I didn't know who you were." I met her gaze, my voice calm but cutting. "No, Brenda, you're not apologizing to me. You're only apologizing because you know I'm rich. Since you value status so much, let me help you understand the cost of your actions. I turned to the hotel manager. Miss Brenda Carter, Andrew's sister, is no longer welcome at any Monroe Holdings events or properties. Please ensure this is noted. And by the way, assaulting someone in public, that's called battery. My legal team will be in touch. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Brenda's hands clutched at the air, as if she could grasp her fading status. I lifted my chin, my torn dress no longer a mark of shame, but a testament to the fire I'd carried through every sneer, every slight. My heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, each step echoing in the heavy silence. Eyes followed me from every table, some clouded with confusion, others glinting with newfound respect. At the grand doors, I paused, turning to face the ballroom one last time. A person's worth isn't measured by their clothes or their bank account, I said, my voice rising clear and unshakable. Remember, the one you dismiss today might hold your future tomorrow. With that, I turned and stepped through the doors. The headlights flared, stretching my shadow long across the marble behind me. The heavy doors swung shut, marking the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Outside, the night air was cool against my skin, the fire inside me burning brighter than ever. I wasn't just surviving. I was living fully, completely, joyfully, and I'd never let anyone make me feel small again. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about shouting or fighting back. It's about standing tall, knowing your worth, and letting the world see exactly who you are on your own terms. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and tell us in the comments, what's the most satisfying moment you've ever had proving someone wrong? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories where the underestimated become unstoppable. Until next time, remember, never let anyone else define your value.